What's up, everybody? David Myhall here with another crazy week in crypto. It is the week of June 28th. Not quite as crazy of a week as the week before, but definitely still another crazy week in crypto. Before I jump into the news, I'll do a quick update on my personal situation. I'm currently in a hotel in Miami, Florida. 2 days ago, I flew from Argentina up here to Florida, escaping my quarantine there. And in a couple hours, I'm getting on another flight and heading off to Serbia eventually. COVID is spiking here. I'm not trying to hang around the US right now. So jumping into the news, of course, we're going to kick it off with more yield farming.
Today, one can still hear the song of the scythe and watch the beautiful rhythm of its swing. Farming never stops.
That's an awesome video, isn't it? So there was a new entrant in the yield farming game this week, and that was Balancer. Now, if you're not familiar with Balancer, it's a really interesting protocol. It's kind of like Uniswap in some ways, but in other ways it can kind of act as like an index fund. You can use Balancer for swapping tokens, just like Uniswap, but you can also use Balancer to take these kind of sets of different tokens that auto-balance themselves. Now, Balancer actually started their liquidity mining program at the beginning of June. Basically, the way it works is you provide liquidity, you add some tokens to their pools, allowing other people to trade and swap them, and then they'll distribute their BAL governance token based on how much liquidity you provided, denominated in US dollars. I actually saw this blog post kind of at the beginning of the month and added a bit of liquidity myself, but there wasn't that much hype around it until this past week because they finally started actually distributing these BAL tokens. Their distribution system is a bit different than the way Compound's doing it. With Compound, you kind of accrue tokens in real time, so you can basically withdraw them at any point. Balancer is manually sending these tokens out to people, so the Balancer team is kind of doing these calculations on their own and then just sending them out to people. And so this different way of doing liquidity mining has opened up a little bit of controversy this week. So the exchange, FTX Exchange, created a Balancer pool that included some of their exchange tokens. Basically, tokens that they control and that they have a large supply of. And then they added these tokens to a Balancer pool so that they would earn a ton of BAL tokens. And of course, this kind of seems like they're gaming the system. They're providing a ton of tokens that are maybe not that liquid, that are somewhat centralized, and kind of taking away from liquidity miners who are adding valuable tokens like ETH and DAI and MKR. So of course the Balancer team and Balancer community kind of started discussing, like, should they change the rules so that these tokens don't count? Should they allow them? They ended up kind of doing a vote on their Discord where they said that they would pick a block, and at that block forward, these tokens wouldn't count. But they weren't gonna do anything retroactive, so the FTX team still earned quite a bit of BAL tokens for those couple days that tokens were in Balancer, but not going forward. Now, this wasn't a great look for Balancer. People were tweeting like, Balancer is issuing these decentralized BAL tokens that are intended to be for governance, yet they made these decisions basically based on discussions on their Discord. Doesn't sound that decentralized, and the truth is it's not decentralized, and that's okay. Balancer is a protocol that is somewhat centralized, and they're trying to decentralize. Same as most protocols in DeFi, Maker, Compound, like that's what these liquidity mining things are about, trying to distribute some governance tokens to people using a system. Hey. Is it okay?
72, yeah.
Okay. Where was I? Balancer is distributing these tokens in a centralized manner, with the goal being that once these tokens are distributed, the governance of this protocol can be left up to these Balancer token holders. But the distribution is centralized, and I think it's totally fair for the team to decide like what criteria they want to distribute tokens on and to block people that are trying to game their system. This thing has also really exposed the difference between the way liquidity mining works on Balancer versus on Compound. I guess kind of the big difference is, first of all, Compound has a whitelist of what tokens can be used inside Compound. At this moment, there's probably only like 7 to 10 tokens that you're allowed to use. And Compound also has their own robust system of like semi-decentralized priced oracles. Balancer, on the other hand, anybody can create a Balancer pool using any tokens you want. You can take the stupidest, most centralized token and put it into a Balancer pool. That part is totally permissionless. And Balancer was taking their price data to determine how much to distribute these tokens just from CoinGecko, which is just a price website similar to CoinMarketCap. This shows that there's many different ways to do liquidity mining, and since there's obviously a ton of interest in the idea of liquidity mining, a lot of protocols are going to be probably coming out with new similar systems. These are kind of two interesting cases that people can look at and try to design better, more robust systems for liquidity mining. Next thing to talk about, kind of zooming out a bit, like obviously DeFi's been kind of blowing up over the past couple weeks, which is super exciting, especially for people who have been following DeFi for a long time and feel like it's kind of starting to get a little bit of mainstream attention. But like any decentralized system, it is having growing pains. Not just the network scalability, which of course we've seen very high gas prices from all this new demand, but also the infrastructure that surrounds these projects. Mainly this week, that was issues with the Graph protocol. If you're not familiar with what the Graph is, they're a service that indexes on-chain data and makes it really easy for web apps to access this data. Most DeFi apps use the Graph in some way or other to pull some data, and with all this new demand in the past week, the Graph had some outages. The longest one, I think, was around 6 hours that their service was down, which meant on some sites like Balancer, you couldn't see some of the numbers about these liquidity pools. The Aave website was pretty much straight up not working. And it's easy to see why people were frustrated with these outages. You know, these are systems where people use to manage their money. These are supposed to be permissionless, open systems that are always available. And it's frustrating to go in and see the systems being down. But big picture, these are just growing pains. The Graph is one of the most respected projects in the space. They have a bunch of really good, smart people working there. I know a number of them personally. I know they've been working their butts off over the past week, trying to fight these fires, trying to help scale their system to all this new demand. And I think incidents like this really just kind of show how new this space is. I think the word DeFi is only around like a year and a half old. There's not a lot of maturity in the space, and so again, websites going down because there's too much demand, like big picture, that's a good thing. That means a lot of people want to use these new exciting projects. I'm super confident that we're going to see the Graph scale to meet this demand, as well as other projects as well. Next thing to talk about is PayPal. So there was a bit of news this week that PayPal might allow users of PayPal and their app Venmo to buy and sell crypto. Generally, this is like not an interesting story to me. There are plenty of stories of big name companies that talk about their interest in PayPal. There's Microsoft and EY and JP Morgan, Samsung. The one thing that might make this a little interesting is that they're kind of going head to head with one of their competitors, which is Square's Cash App. And Square, of course, is owned by Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey is definitely pretty strongly in the Bitcoin side, which is part of why Square has really only offered support for buying and selling Bitcoin. So one thing that I think could be interesting is if PayPal decides to offer some crypto services to their users, and they maybe take a little bit of a wider view. If they allowed buying Bitcoin, but also ETH and DAI, maybe using Compound, Aave, Uniswap, like there's a lot of really interesting financial tools out there. It'd be exciting to see a company like PayPal bringing more people into that ecosystem. But generally, I don't really like PayPal as a company, so I didn't care that much. Next thing to talk about was something that I've been following closely for personal reasons, which is, basically there was this German company called Wirecard that kind of imploded this past week. There was a bunch of money that went missing, which appears to be some fraud. I think the CEO got arrested. And where crypto comes into play is this company was a company that's issued Visa cards for a number of crypto projects, one of them being Crypto.com. I've actually ordered a Crypto.com card, staked a bit of tokens, trying to fit this into my goal of going fully bankless, not relying on traditional banks anymore. Now, late this week, Crypto.com announced that all their cards that are issued to citizens of the European Union and United Kingdom, their cards will no longer work anymore because the cards were issued by Wirecard. And again, this just kind of shows the trouble with not only centralized finance, but some of these crypto banks like Crypto.com, a lot of us got into this industry so that we wouldn't need to depend on centralized entities like exchanges and banks. And now we're seeing like the problem with these centralized points of failure. Like there was a bit of fraud at some company that I'd never even heard of a couple days ago, and all of a sudden like a bunch of these crypto Visa cards just stopped working. So hopefully not too long from now, we won't need to rely on these centralized companies. For now, we still do need these on and off ramps. That's the reason I've ordered one of these cards. It does shine a good light on a company called Monolith that is offering Visa cards to EU citizens. And Monolith is definitely more of a DeFi-friendly company. I don't know all the specifics about their products because I'm not an EU citizen, but I know that the funds are held a little bit less custodially. If I lived in the EU, I think I would definitely be a lot more interested in Monolith than the Crypto.com cards. That is it for this week. I did this episode a little short because, again, this is a busy day for me, but check back next week for another crazy week in crypto. Take care.